Have you ever really thought about the medicine in your cabinet? I mean, how do they make sure that the very first pill in the bottle is just as safe and effective as the absolute last one? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible science that makes that possible.
So let's just start with that big question right there. How on earth do you guarantee that every single pill is perfect? I mean, it is a huge challenge. With medicine, you can't afford to be off by even a tiny amount. The tiniest variation could have massive consequences for someone's health. For decades, the answer was basically to just test for mistakes at the end of the process. But a whole new way of thinking has completely flipped that idea on its head.
Okay, let's break this down. The old way, it was all reactive. You'd make this giant batch of medicine, and then you'd test a sample at the end. If it failed, well, you'd have to scramble to figure out what went wrong, or even worse, just throw the entire batch away. It seems so wasteful, doesn't it? And kind of risky? The new way, though, is totally proactive. It's a complete shift. You don't just test for quality at the end, you actually design it in from the very beginning.
Now this new philosophy has a name. It's called Quality by Design, or QbD for short. It's all about taking drug manufacturing from a process that kind of relies on chance and hope, hoping it passes the test at the end, to one that operates with scientific certainty and has quality built into every single step.
You know, this idea isn't brand new to manufacturing in general. It was pioneered by a brilliant guy named Dr. Joseph M. Juran, and his core insight is just so powerful. Quality isn't something you find by inspecting things at the end. It's something you have to plan for from the very start. He argued that most problems aren't really failures in making something, they're failures in how it was designed. And that right there is the bedrock principle of quality by design.
So what is quality by design, really? Put simply, it's a systematic approach that starts with knowing exactly what you want to achieve. The best analogy is baking a cake. It's the difference between just blindly following a recipe you found online versus being a master pastry chef who understands exactly how the flour's protein content, the oven's true temperature, and the mixing time all interact to create that perfect, delicious cake every single time.
All right, let's stick with that baking analogy because it works so well. We're going to use it to break down the blueprint for quality. We'll look at the simple, logical steps that scientists now use to design the perfect pill right from the ground up.
The whole process really boils down to these three key stages. First, you have to define what perfect even means for this particular pill. Second, you figure out which ingredients and which steps in the process are the most important for achieving that perfection. And third, and this is the absolute magic of it all, you have to scientifically understand the link between them.
So first up, step one, you've got to define perfect. If we're baking, this is where we'd say our cake has to be moist, perfectly sweet, and not crumble. In medicine, this is called the Quality Target Product Profile. It's basically a list of non-negotiable goals. They call them critical quality attributes, or CQAs. Things like the pill must deliver the exact dose, it has to dissolve at just the right time in the body, and it needs to stay stable for its entire shelf life. These are the targets. This is what we have to hit, no exceptions.
Okay, now here's where it gets really cool. How do we make sure we hit those targets? We have to look upstream. What actually affects them? Let's take the mixing step. The blend uniformity, that's our quality goal, right, is directly affected by stuff like the particle size of our ingredients and the blender's speed and how long we run it. These are what they call critical material attributes and critical process parameters. It's all cause and effect.
And you can actually boil this whole idea down to a simple relationship, almost like a math formula. The final quality of that perfect pill is a function of its critical ingredients and the critical steps in the process. The whole goal is to understand this function so well that you can predict the outcome before you even start. You're replacing trial and error with a real powerful scientific model.
So all the scientific homework leads to something called a design space, and this is a game changer. Think of it as your scientifically proven safe zone. You know with certainty that as long as your blender's speed is between, say, 100 and 150 RPM, and your main ingredient's particle size is within a certain range, you are guaranteed to get a perfect blend. This gives manufacturers flexibility to handle the normal, tiny variations that happen in the real world without ever compromising quality. That's a huge deal. Okay, so we've done all this amazing design work. We have our scientific model, we have our safe zone. So what? What does that actually let us do out on the factory floor? Well, the payoff is a whole new level of smart, flexible control. We're moving away from rigid, old-school rules and into an era of real-time response.
This chart really shows you that evolution. See, level 3, that's the old way we talked about, just tons of testing at the end. But with quality by design, you can operate at level 2, where you just control the process to make sure it stays inside that design space. Or, even better,
You can get to level 1, where you're using advanced sensors to literally monitor quality as it's being made and automatically adjust the process to stay on target. It is a massive, massive leap in making sure everything is perfect.
So look, the crucial point here is that this isn't just some fancy academic exercise. The real-world benefits are enormous. By understanding your process this deeply, you slash the number of defects. Manufacturing gets way more efficient because you're not just throwing away entire bad batches. And hey, if something does go wrong, you know exactly where to look to find the root cause. And at the end of the day, it all adds up to one thing: safer, more reliable medicine for all of us.
So let's bring this all home, because this might seem like a complex manufacturing strategy, but it has a very, very direct impact on every single one of us. This is the science that actually underpins the safety and the reliability of the medicines that you and your family count on.
When you really think about it, quality by design is a huge philosophical shift. It's about moving away from a world where we find and fix mistakes after they've already happened to a brand new world where we proactively design a process that is so robust that mistakes are basically engineered out from the very start. It's about proactive perfection.
And the goal here is nothing less than 100%. The entire objective is to make sure every single tablet, every single capsule, reliably delivers the exact therapeutic benefit that's promised on the label. Quality by design isn't just about being efficient, it's about fulfilling that fundamental promise to the patient every single time.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. This whole principle of understanding a system so deeply that you can guarantee a quality outcome, it's incredibly powerful, right? So it makes you wonder, where else could we use this? What other complex systems, from the software we use every day to maybe even public policy, could be totally transformed by designing quality in from the very beginning? It's a pretty powerful idea to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.